Canvassr, a marketplace for direct campaigns. Here is my take on the current state of the door-to-door industry in 2025. First and foremost, we've got these massive companies with MLM sales incentive structures. Basically, the whole system's based around overrides. You'll make your own team, people on your team will make their own team, they'll eventually run their own office, and that'll be your outside deal, and there's overrides here, there, and everywhere. Most of the money isn't even going to the worker who actually signed the person up. But yeah, there's these massive cuts taken. There's a horrific reputation of these door-to-door parent companies. There's millions of these subsidiary multi-level marketing companies across the world, all with their owners taking a cut for themselves, and then the canvassers are getting paid next to nothing. And the charities, less money is going to the charity than is possible. Essentially, it's a big racket in my opinion. The next issue that I can see is there's a lack of transparency around the quality of individual canvassers that actually get shared with the charities and the businesses who represent them. So third, it might seem surprising, but for door-to-door sales company, they love expensive offices despite them staying empty during the day. You might have one or two recruiters, like they buy the most expensive offices in the center of town, right? So they've got like 8 offices in the middle of London, right? And that can't be cheap. So the next issue, huge amounts of money is just wasted on recruitment, in my opinion. So they give basically a third of their budget straight to companies like Indeed. And I feel like this is due to their horrific attrition rates, which is due to the suppressed wages and the override system, and probably the toxic work culture as well. The next issue that I can see is that canvassers don't have an ability to switch to better campaigns without changing jobs, essentially. Say Guide Dogs is a campaign that's near and dear to your heart, but maybe they don't pay as much as selling solar. Maybe you'd like to be able to, do a couple of days working for Guide Dogs, and then maybe you want to spend a few days working for selling solar, and that way you can make money and also help out. That's not possible right now, and I want to change that. Finally, whenever I was in the business, I saw a real lack of use of technology. For example, when I was going door to door, we were using pen and paper for territory management. So you can only imagine if it started to rain, your KPI would just disintegrate. The next issue was basically in the morning, whenever you got to the office, it would be chaotic. You'd have the owner trying to match people to the map. There'd be printouts of a map flying around. You'd have this chaos going on, like who's going with who and what car. It was mayhem, and that should all be automated. So how do I know this? Well, I joined a company called 4-Time Marketing, formerly known as Modus Promotions, in Belfast, and I was doing work for Alzheimer's Research UK. And don't get me wrong, they are an amazing charity, and they negotiated a brilliant breakdown of costs, and like 100% of donations went to research. So they are, the heroes of the story, alright? But Forti was one of the many subsidiaries of APCO UK, which itself is a subsidiary of a global corporation called Devilcore. It has no name, as it constantly rebrands due to its horrific reputation. To give you an idea of the absurdity of, imagine the likes of Microsoft rebranding every week and having millions of subsidiaries that did business on its behalf who also changed their name every few months. So my solution to this problem, an app where anybody can sign up as a salesman, scroll through campaigns, pick one, get a bib and ID badge shipped out to them, and start pitching the next day. I think this will result in better pay. If we cut out the middlemen marketing companies and all the real estate waste, we can pay canvassers a lot better. And this will in turn help better canvassers who like to have deep conversations with people do better. And people donate if they feel like they've had a good connection with a canvasser. Desperate people, if they're doing sales, they're just looking for the next sale. If you're not desperate, you can afford to have great conversations with people. Automated territory booking. So essentially what I'm envisioning is people will band together into a team. They'll vote on territory they'd like to work. They can see in the app how work the territory is, and behind the scenes, I'll go and talk to the council and the police. I'll bid on the territory for you, and then you just have to show up. So I'll do all the paperwork for you. The next thing I'm envisioning is a rating system. So a public profile and a rating system for canvassers. So that way the bad apples get weeded out and thrown off the platform quickly, and nice people get rewarded and compensated for high quality signups. The next thing I'm thinking is a buddy system. So for people just starting out, door-to-door sales is horrifically difficult, and realistically you need support, you need help to figure out how to do it. So I'm envisioning a buddy system where the buddy will basically get paid a good amount if you stay on and keep pitching for a good long time. Working together keeps people motivated as well. If we can keep that going, we group people together in like a territory management section, I think that would be perfect. Next thing is easy campaign switching. So obviously it's very difficult right now to switch campaigns unless you leave your current job. But now with this app, you can just switch campaigns with a couple of clicks. You can mix and match your campaigns, and all you need to do is make sure you've got the brand equipment to wear when you're pitching. We're going to have online support, so loads of videos telling you all the best sales methods. And the main thing is pushy sales don't work, right? They just don't. People get pissed off, and they might sign up just to get you to fuck off, but they'll just cancel it. When they get the phone call later on that week, they'll just cancel it. They'll be like, look, so-and-so was being a dickhead to me, I signed up to get rid of him. It doesn't work. People want to feel like care about the charity, right? They want you to be passionate, and they don't want to feel pressure. Pressure doesn't work. And finally, with an app, it becomes possible to turn door-to-door sales into a form of digital nomad. You can work wherever there are campaigns running. If this takes off the way I'm thinking, you could just sign up to the app and travel the world, working a couple of days here and there. The next aspect is sort of viewing this app from the perspective of charities or businesses. I'm thinking this could be AWS for door-to-door sales. I want to build global sales infrastructure. I want to have automated processes for local forms, for territory management, or applying with the police and council of various jurisdictions, and make it really simple for people to canvass wherever they want, wherever in the world. As long as you have your work visa, we'll manage the rest. I want charities and businesses to have the ability to expand their campaigns globally at the touch of a button, or have it extremely targeted to specific territories, perhaps down to the individual neighborhoods. I want charities to be able to design their campaigns online in like a self-service view. I want them to be able to select their brand equipment, select their badges, welcome packs, forms and surveys they need completed. I want them to be able to designate pitch points directly to canvassers or exact scripts and be able to change that on the fly. Obviously, they need to be able to select the duration of their campaign, pay breakdown. I also want them to be able to select the quality of canvassers that they want. So obviously, if you don't really give a shit about who's selling it, you just need numbers, you could set that quite low. But if you're wanting to maintain a really good brand image, maybe you only want people with 4 stars out of 5 or above. With this digital first model, it becomes possible to inform charities immediately about complaints. There will be no allowances for bad canvassers. Even if they're making sales, doesn't matter. So I kind of mentioned this already. I want to copy Uber's model of rating riders, but I want to rate canvassers. So what I'm thinking is during the sign up process, probably just before the signature at the end, I want the canvasser to basically hand the iPad over and say, here, look, I hope you think I've been lovely and nice. If you could just write a wee review, just be as honest as possible. And, you're welcome to take the iPad there, and then they can write a wee review, and that'll show up on the canvasser's public profile. Because with higher pay comes much higher standards, no exceptions. When I was working for Alzheimer's research, this was essentially a rough breakdown of the economics. You might be wondering, how is there so much money in charity, right? But for a £12 donation, right, the average donor actually stays on for about 5 years, and that works out to about £720 or something. But if the donor is a UK citizen who pays tax beyond just VAT, then the government is able to chip in with gift aid. And gift aid is essentially 25p for every pound donated by the person. And that brings up the total to about £900. So a £12 donation is worth about £900 to a charity. And we can see where that money roughly goes. This is a wee bit disingenuous because £900 goes straight to the charity, right? This portion down here is actually paid up front from a pre-allocated fundraising budget, right? But it essentially gets reimbursed through gift aid. But we can see that about £40 goes to the Canvassr. We have £120 goes to the marketing company, and 120 goes to AppCo. The marketing company spends about a third of their budget on recruitment. They spend another chunk of their money on real estate, and then they've got various other costs. You know, they might be told, hey, you have to use our accountant, you have to use our legal retainer dude or whatever. And they basically have extreme vendor lock-in, so how much the owner actually gets is not as significant as you'd think. And then AppCo gets a huge chunk, and to be honest, I don't really know what they spend it on. You know, they probably have a huge amount allocated to procurement of charities and businesses, but I can't really say. But I think most of this budget, you know, the red and orange, can essentially be cut off, and I think the Canvassr's take home could be tripled, and we could also increase how much the charity gets. I will also say that about a third of this is basically set aside for cancellations, and that's to make the charity whole if anyone cancels. Whether it's selling solar in Australia, or charity in the UK, or knickknacks in Asia, sales is a global industry, currently worth just over 200 billion in gross sales, with a healthy CAGR of 6.6%, and I want to aggressively go after the entire market. Obviously, with us not needing to buy expensive real estate, we can pay canvassers more, and we can give charities and businesses lower percentage fees while still making massive profits. My expansion strategy. Initially, I'm going to probably go after small charities just to build up a bit of a reputation. In terms of getting employees, in terms of getting salespeople, I'm planning to just poach these independent contractors who are already trained and underpaid at these MLM sales offices. And then this is my pre-seed round, but that's not too important for this. So yeah, that is Canvassr. Thank you very much for listening.